The Get On Living Safely campaign is sponsoring this podcast to remind you to keep your spending in the community. Supporting local businesses keeps food on the table for our friends and neighbors. Follow them on social media and learn more at getonlivingsafely.com. Today, we talk with Jesse Wolf, musician and owner of GroundBreaking Sound Studios. We chat about working with area musicians, what his favorite projects are, his band Zamik, the recording process during COVID, and what's coming up. You can find more conversations on our website, lacrosselocal.com. I'm Amy.
And I'm Brent.
And this is Lacrosse Local.
So my name is Jesse Wolf. I was born right here in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and I think my dad's love for music kind of pushed me that way.
You know, I've kind of noticed different local bands coming out with CDs, and it always mentions GroundBreaking Sound Studios. So how did that project come about?
So that's kind of a funny story because it actually started back when I was in high school. I was in bands at the time, and we were actually spending a lot of money going to Natural Recording Company, which used to be in town, right down on Main Street at that time. So after we spent a bunch of money recording an EP, and I kind of got the feel of what it was like to be in the studio environment, I was like, this seems like something I'd really like to do. And then, the cost aspect of it as well is like, I might as well be able to record my own stuff while I make some money recording other bands to help pay for that hobby of mine. So it ended up working out pretty well for me.
So what have you enjoyed most about working with area musicians?
I feel like there's a lot of different things that I really like, and it depends on the different bands I work with. Pretty much all the bands that I work with, I get along with really well. They're really receptive to any feedback I give, and it's kind of a collaborative sort of, venture to get the product out at the end. On top of just being able to be a part of those projects and kind of be a part of lacrosse music history, which lacrosse has such a rich musical backbone to it, I really like just kind of the little perks that come along with it, getting to be included in what these bands are doing and, going to the shows, hanging backstage with them when they're in town and when I get invited to those, things like that. So all sorts of little perks.
What has the experience been for COVID in terms of recording musicians in the area? Is it possible?
So there's also a very funny story with that. COVID really disrupted my business because, as you know, we're talking into microphones and stuff and sharing a bunch of gear, being in small closed off spaces. So really a lot of opportunities for transmission to happen with something as transmissible as COVID. So I pretty much closed down my studio. And I just kind of threw out there that, I'd be working on some mixing projects if people had stuff they recorded on their own to mix, which I was able to get a few pieces of business that way. And then I did start doing some garage recording with the space heaters. I think it was right around fall. And unfortunately, after we got about halfway through that project, the day before we were supposed to record some vocals, Tyler, their vocalist, ended up coming down with COVID. So we kind of had to go to a different method there and actually have him start recording his own tracks. So we had like all of the music done for the most part. So I actually gave him some equipment to go and start recording some vocals and then send the tracks over. So now we're kind of doing things that way. I also finished up the Homeland Conspiracy's album that way too, because we had all the music done right at the beginning of the outbreak. And then they had to still get their vocals done. And of course, we didn't want to wait until whenever this is going to be over. So just kind of changing the business plan and the way that we do things, but still staying active, which has been nice because I was not expecting to be as active as I still am at this point right now.
So off that Homeland Conspiracy album, was there any favorites on that?
I really like the song Sick Girl.
Sick girl, 'cause your heart ain't let you play. I met this little girl, man, she was so fine. That was all I get the chance, but I had to make her mine. Oh, one night I was screaming, man, and all my dreams came.
It's a little bit more punky and kind of like, it's just more punky and faster. And punk is kind of what I'm all about. So whenever I get a little taste of that to record, I'm always happy with it.
So you're also in your own band called Zamik. You also have a new EP out called Bored, Not Boring. What is that process like, or how has that been?
That was actually a really interesting process as well, because we recorded that through the pandemic. We actually started out with the acoustic track that ends that EP. It was just an idea that I had when I was sitting around bored with nothing to do with an acoustic guitar. I was like, this song would really translate well because it was on our previous release as a full-on punk song. So we got together and actually had Austin, our drummer, and Matt, our singer and guitarist, come and record their parts in the garage. And then from there, we were like, well, let's actually record a couple more songs. So we released this with more than just the one song on it. And at that point, we ended up going into our practice space and recording using my mobile recording setup. So definitely a lot different than what we're used to recording in. But I was still really happy with the way it turned out, not being able to use my actual studio for it.
So is there any particular track off that EP that you like a little bit more than the others, or are they all fan favorites?
I really like the acoustic one because I just love playing with acoustic guitars as well, and it gives it a whole different feeling, and that School Spirit acoustic version. But I also really like Golden Ticket on there because it's more of an alternative style song, and we don't have many songs like that since most of our stuff is a little bit more punky.
Heaven, my God, promise not to tell. I lie myself a ticket straight to hell.
So it's kind of opened up some new doors for us to kind of go down some different avenues, which has been cool.
And then also just last fall, you guys got to play Who Gives a Fest. You also got to play with the Garage Sessions, which was shot live at the Weber Center and streamed live. Was those kind of the most recent gigs? Have you had much time to play together in person?
We actually haven't, other than those two things. They were both a lot of fun, and I honestly wasn't even expecting that we'd have an opportunity to play shows like that during this. So those were widely welcomed when we were asked to play those. Pretty much towards around Thanksgiving time, when the hospitals started getting overwhelmed again, we actually haven't really practiced since then, just because the COVID cases are ramping back up. However, I think that we are on our way to talking about practicing again. So I'm hoping that as things start normalizing again, we can get some more opportunities like that showing up.
So what's coming up for GroundBreaking Studios or Zamik or anything? What's on the horizon for you?
Making it all the rock music we can, honestly. So it's really kind of just playing it by ear, but day by day, and just seeing what comes. Like I said, I'm here to honestly just push out as much music as I can and have fun doing it. That's what it's all about.
So if people want to follow along, what's the best avenue for them?
So I don't really have a website for the studio, but I use Facebook religiously for it. You can actually find me at facebook.com/groundbreaking sound. Otherwise, just search Groundbreaking Sound Studios. I think I'm the only one that shows up. I'm pretty sure, at least. So
Lacrosse Local Podcast is a production of River Travel Media. Do you have an interview idea you'd like to share with us? Message us on Facebook at Lacrosse Local. Find out more about us at lacrosselocal.com, and you can subscribe to the Lacrosse Local Podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you like us, rate us 5 stars. We appreciate it.